There are plenty of reasons why an Overwatch player might have trouble climbing out of the elo that they are currently in. It could be not knowing your heroes well enough, maybe you're just not playing the right heroes at the right places, or maybe you just think that your teammates are holding you back, which I can probably tell you right now isn't the case. In today's video, we're going to go over something that I actually can't find too much information on, but I feel like is very important for Overwatch players to succeed and get more value. And that is what I like to call free resources. What are these free resources, you might ask? Well, I'm glad you asked. To me, free resource is anything in the game that is available to all of the players. And what this does for you is it gives you a competitive advantage because you are gathering information that is available to everybody, but most people don't use this information correctly or they don't even utilize it whatsoever. So the plan of this video, we're going to discuss the available resources that are given to you and then go over how to apply this information into an effective manner during your games. So the first thing I want to go over with you guys is something I like to call tab checking, or for you console players, the scoreboard. So what you see on the screen right now is what I call the tab check or the scoreboard check. And I'm going to show you what is important and what isn't so important when looking at this information. So what you see down on the bottom left where it gives you hero damage, elims, deaths, and all that nonsense is not as important as you think. I mean, sure, it can give you a general idea, but at the end of the day, that's not really showing what your true value is or what anybody else's value is. So when we look at this screen, do not focus too much on what is going on down there. What you want to be focusing on is what's going on up here. It's important to analyze this information for a couple reasons. First off, it gives you the chance to analyze what your team is playing and then gives you the opportunity to decide what you're going to play to complement your team the most. Obviously, you won't be able to see the enemy team before the gates actually open in a couple seconds after the game starts, but once you see the enemy team, then you have a decision to make. Is your hero still good against the enemy team, or is there something better you can play? And that's going to be the difference from an average player and a good player in a sense, where the average player just kind of plays whatever they want and just keeps going forward, and the good player analyzes what's going on and then makes adjustments to the game. Another reason that tab checking is so important is that it's going to give you an idea of what could possibly happen for next fight. And this can be done through ult tracking. Ult tracking is exactly what it sounds like. You are keeping track of which ultimates are available and which ones you think are available. And this goes for both teams. So let's think about it from the ally end for a second. We know that we're about to build Nano for this next fight, and we have a monkey on our team. This is going to be a situation where you want to play pretty aggressive because by the time you Nano monkey and he goes in and Nano wears off, he's most likely going to have Primal, which is going to make a lot of space for your team. So from the teammate perspective, it's relatively easy to set up plays because you can actually see which ults are available and almost available. But managing your team with ults might prevent a fight where your team uses 6 ults and then you go into the next fight with nothing and ultimately most likely end up losing that next fight. The harder part of ult tracking is when you're looking at the enemy team where you can't see what's available and you are forced to use brain power to try to break down what they're going to have for the upcoming fight. I'll give you a quick example on this end too to put it into perspective for you. So let's say you're playing against everybody's favorite comp on a Genji, and you haven't seen Nano or Blade for the past 2 fights. What do you think's gonna happen next? So the good news is, the Nano Blade's about to happen, but the bad news is, you have no idea how to react to it. A smart support player, would save Sound Barrier or Transcendence or something for it to help counter it, but also think creatively. There's also plenty of ways you can counter Nano Blade, you're probably just not thinking about it. For example, to make things interesting, let's say that you have 2 supports that don't have defensive ults, but you have a Zarya on your team that has Grav ready. Most people would just think that you're probably going to lose that fight because, like I said, they have Nano Blade. You don't hypothetically have a defensive ult, so most people would just think, okay, GG's, we just have to wipe to this. But a creative thinker, like I said, if you have a Zarya player, could just solo Grav the Nano Blade and Genji. So the point I'm trying to make throughout all of this is, planning ahead of time makes the game easier to read because instead of having to react to something because you weren't ready, you will be proactive in dictating how this could possibly play out. And that ultimately will give you a competitive advantage because you will be one step ahead of the game. You have to think about it like a game of chess, right? Normally the people that are good thinking in advance are the ones that usually end up winning those type of games. And the same can be applied for Overwatch, no doubt. So instead of living in the past thinking about what your Ana did last fight, how she fed, think forward and think about how we can be prepared to win the upcoming fight. Which is going to lead me into my next point, which is the kill feed. The kill feed is always right there, but the problem is either people don't utilize it how they should be, or they are just totally disregarding it and not paying attention to it at all. In my opinion, I think kill feed is probably the most important resource in the game of Overwatch. It is another great tool to give you an idea of team advantages and disadvantages while the fight is playing out. So there's a couple things you have to keep in mind when you're keeping track of the kill feed. It's very important to keep track of the death counts. For example, say 2 of your teammates die, and then one of your teammates follow up and lands a kill. You are technically -1 in that fight, meaning that the enemy team has one more player playing the game than your team does. Does that mean the fight's lost and it's GG's go next? Absolutely not. But is that technically considered a disadvantage? Yes. So I just want to go on the record before I go more into this video. Just because you're down numbers in Overwatch doesn't mean those fights could not be won. Because again, let's say you're down 1, but now we have the Ana Genji and we have Nanoblade ready. Do you think we can win a fight 5v6 with ult economy? Yes, no doubt. But there are also fights and scenarios where you are significantly disadvantaged due to a specific hero dying and you actually need to play on your back foot, being a little defensive. An example of that. Say you're the team's main tank and you are about to walk in and take a fight, meaning that you have not engaged yet, and your main healer just suddenly dies. I see this endless times where a main tank player doesn't even realize this, walks in, takes the fight disadvantage, and then most likely complains about either not getting healed or whatever because they have no idea what was going on. So if you're a player and you see that happen, you need to be the one to say, okay guys, we gotta back up and group up as 6 because you gotta think about the upside here. Do you really want to risk another 45 seconds or whatever for you to take that fight, down your main healer, and ultimately most likely end up losing that fight? I just don't think it's a high upside play. Does that mean that fight is absolutely impossible to win? No. But are you disadvantaged in the sense that they have more people than you do? Yes. And the difference being is what we talked about earlier in the video is, ult tracking and planning. If you have a big win condition, and even though you're down 1, you feel like you have a chance of winning that fight, you could perhaps invest it if you think there's a good opportunity. But just keep the open mind and understand the situation that, sometimes it's better to just wait 6v6. That way you're most equipped to be taking these fights and actually win them in the long haul. So let's think about it from a different perspective, because I feel like the best way to explain this is to provide examples. Say you have a Reinhardt versus Reinhardt matchup, okay? Your team's Reinhardt ends up dying in the fight, so they have a 6v5 opportunity, correct? So they're going to have the advantage in pushing the pace and forcing you guys back. What a smart player would do on the team disadvantage is they would actually start playing on their back foot. And what I mean by that is playing a little more defensive because, if you lose your main tank and you're still in the fight and they have 6 players, you guys are most likely going to get rolled. And what's good about switching the pace to defensive in a situation like this is there's a good chance that the other team is going to get too kill hungry, and it's possible that they overextend and end up feeding, and that way you have a chance to start evening out the numbers in the advantage game. So I feel like you should start noticing the trend here. It's not wise to just always play absolutely aggro. I don't know where it originated, but I do VODs every once in a while, and I hear these people come in and say, yeah, I'm not one of those people that play scared all the time. They're like, I'm a W key player or something like that. And it's just not smart to always be overly aggressive because there's a time and a place for it, right? Everything about Overwatch is just having advantages and disadvantages, in my opinion. And if you're a player that always wants to be aggressive and they're being aggressive during a disadvantage, you're just going to be stuck where you are, and I'm going to guess that's most likely a lower elo. So to wrap up, and I practically stressed it out throughout the whole video, but I just want to get into it one last time, just full disclosure. You need to be able to understand situations and resources to be able to capitalize on being aggressive or defensive. Just because you're down 2 people, does that mean the fight's absolutely unwinnable? No, because again, everything's subjective, every situation is going to be different, and the things I mentioned have to be applied in these situations to have an idea whether you can win these fights or not. So at the end of the day, you have to be able to utilize this information that is right in front of you and be able to apply it in an effective manner. For the best success, again, just treat Overwatch like it's a game of chess in the sense that you always need to be ahead of the game and you can't be worried about what happened. You have to be thinking about what's going to happen next. And if you do that, there's a good chance you'll probably see more success moving forward in your Overwatch future. So that's all I have for today's video. If you've made it this far, I've just wanted to thank you guys for taking the time to watch this. And just remember, every situation is different in Overwatch. There's not going to be one universal right or wrong answer. It's just up for you to try to find out what the right play is given what you have available to you. If you have any questions you want to ask me specifically, you can find me on Twitch at twitch.tv/thesauceboss_OW, or feel free to join my Discord where I'll have both linked down below. I just wanted to thank you guys for taking the time to watch this video one more time, and please make sure to like and subscribe because we plan on making more videos soon. So thank you guys, have a good one. See ya.